Hashtag what did humans do all day before writing was invented? You're about to discover that your entire understanding of human history might be backwards, because for 95% of human existence, not a single person could write their name, not one, and yet civilization didn't collapse, society didn't crumble. In fact, humans were arguably more efficient with their time than we are today. So what were they actually doing? Stay with me because the answer will completely change how you see productivity, memory, and what it really means to be human. Let's start with the shocking truth. Writing is brand new. Seriously, if human existence was a 24-hour day, writing showed up at 11:47 p.m. We're talking about roughly 300,000 years of Homo sapiens living without a single written word. That's not a typo. 300,000 years. So the first question everyone asks is obvious. How did they remember anything? How did they store information? The answer will blow your mind because they didn't rely on paper or phones or cloud storage. They relied on something infinitely more powerful, their brains and their culture. Here's what ancient humans actually did with their days. First, they talked constantly, and this wasn't casual chit-chat. Storytelling was a technology, a survival technology. The best storytellers in the tribe didn't just entertain around the fire. They were the library. They were the instruction manual. They were the history book, the legal code, the medical textbook, and the entertainment system all rolled into one. Think about this for a second. A master storyteller could memorize the entire genealogy of their tribe going back 10 generations, not written down, just memorized through rhythm, pattern, repetition, and emotional connection. Some oral traditions were so detailed and so important that they could take an entire night to recite, and people would sit there completely focused, absorbing every word because this information mattered. But storytelling wasn't their only information storage system. They used something called the method of Loki, or the memory palace technique. Archaeologists believe ancient peoples would mentally place information within familiar physical locations. They'd walk through a mental landscape, and at each landmark, a tree, a rock, a stream, they'd imagine something that represented the information they needed to remember. So you're standing at the entrance to your village? That's where you place the memory about the poisonous plants. Walk toward the hunting grounds? That's where you remember which animals are in season. Reach the river? That's where you memorize the trade routes. It sounds strange, but this technique was so powerful that Roman orators used it to deliver hour-long speeches without notes, without any notes at all. Let's talk about what else filled their days, because it wasn't just talking and remembering. Humans were building, they were creating, they were experimenting. Archaeological evidence shows that before writing, humans were already producing incredibly complex art. We're talking about the paintings in caves like Chauvet and Sulawesi, masterpieces created 30,000 to 40,000 years ago. But here's the thing, these weren't just pretty pictures. Many archaeologists believe they served a purpose. They were teaching tools, visual records of hunts, animal behavior, rituals, and spiritual beliefs. They were information storage too, just in a different format. And then there's the craftwork. Before writing, humans were already master craftspeople. They were making tools so specialized and so precise that you'd need years of hands-on training to replicate them. The knowledge wasn't written in a manual. It was passed directly from master to apprentice, hand to hand, demonstration by demonstration. This knowledge transfer was so effective that some craft techniques lasted thousands of years without changing. So what did a typical day actually look like? Wake up at dawn. First priority, food. Maybe you're hunting. Maybe you're gathering. This took up a significant chunk of the day, anywhere from 4 to 6 hours depending on the season and location. But here's something surprising that anthropologists discovered. It probably wasn't as grueling as we assumed. Studies of modern hunter-gatherer societies suggest that the workday was actually lighter than our modern 9 to 5. After food procurement, you'd spend time maintaining your tools and shelter. If you had kids, you were teaching them. Not in a classroom, obviously, but through observation and participation. They'd learn by doing. They'd learn by watching. They'd learn through stories told during downtime. Then there was maintenance of the social bonds. This is crucial and often overlooked. Humans spent considerable time reinforcing their social structure. In fact, some researchers argue that language evolved not primarily for information sharing, but for social bonding. You were gossiping, you were settling disputes, you were planning tomorrow's hunt with your group. You were deciding who was going to do what and establishing hierarchies. As the sun started setting, that's when storytelling became central. This is when the elders would teach. This is when myths were reinforced. This is when entertainment happened. This is when spiritual practices occurred. In many societies, these nighttime gatherings were the most important part of the day, not because they were the most productive in a modern sense, but because they held the entire society together. And here's something most people don't realize. Before writing, humans had plenty of downtime, free time, leisure time. Archaeological evidence suggests that pre-literate societies had significant periods of relative idleness. People would sit around. They'd craft things for pleasure, not just necessity. They'd play games. Music was central to almost every culture we know about. This raises an uncomfortable question. Were they wasting time, or were we the ones who got it wrong? Because here's what happened when writing was invented. Around 3200 BCE in Mesopotamia, humans created a tool to externalize information. At first, it was revolutionary. Writing could store massive amounts of data. It could preserve it across generations. It created accountability and law. It enabled empires. But it came with a cost. Writing changed how we think. It created a separation between the knower and the knowledge. Before, you had to know things intimately, through memorization and practice and repeated exposure. Afterwards, you could outsource it. You could look it up. This freed up mental space, sure, but it also created a dependency. We became reliant on external storage systems. Writing also changed how we value time. Pre-literate societies didn't have the concept of time as something to be optimized and filled and counted in minutes. Time was cyclical, it was seasonal, it was relational, tied to stories and rituals and relationships. Post-literate humanity became obsessed with linear time, with productivity, with filling every moment with something quantifiable. So what did ancient humans do all day? They talked, they remembered, they created, they taught, they built, they played, they gathered, they hunted, they celebrated, they bonded, and they took their time doing it. They lived in a way that we've largely forgotten how to do, fully present, deeply connected, and unrushed. The irony? We're sitting here in 2024 with smartphones that contain the entirety of human knowledge, and we're arguably less informed, less connected, and more anxious than people who couldn't read a single word. Maybe they were onto something.